Now, when it comes to initial recognition, what do we say? According to IAS 16, the initial cost of an asset shall be the purchases or the acquisition cost or construction cost, plus all other directly attributable costs incurred in bringing the asset to its present use. And so when you are dealing with IAS 16, on the initial recognition of property, plant, and equipment, there are certain accounting standards that may come to town depending on the context of the question. So what are these accounting standards? We will have IAS 37 provisions. Why? Because if there is an environmental cost that the entity will incur, or landscaping or dismantling costs that the entity will incur in the future, and there is a present obligation which is either legal or constructive, we have to discount that into present terms, and that present value should be included in the initial cost of the asset. So IAS 37 can come to town when we are dealing with initial recognition of an asset. Not only that, we can call on IAS 23 borrowing cost. Why? Because when an entity borrows funds to finance the acquisition or construction of a qualifying asset, then the borrowing cost must be included in the initial cost of the asset. So borrowing cost is coming to town. So we see provisions, we see borrowing cost coming to town. Not only that, we are also going to be having issues in respect of IAS 20, accounting for government grants and disclosure of government assistance. Why? Because when an entity receives government grant, there are two ways it could be accounted for, either the deferred income approach or the right of approach. If we are going to be doing the right of approach, then the initial measurement and recognition of the asset, let me do this, initial measurement and recognition of the asset will be different. And so IAS 20 could come to town, and you got to be mindful of that. Not only that, IAS 21 effects of changes in exchange rates could come to town. Why? Because transactions that are denominated in a currency other than the functional currency of the reporting entity must be translated into the functional currency of the reporting entity. And so IAS 21 effects of changes in exchange rate can come to town there in the initial recognition. Now, so when you are doing initial recognition, you see that the connection, and that is how you learn the accounting standards. So it's not that the accounting standards are like islands on their own. They are intertwined. Yes, we must know them independently, but the beauty of the accounting standards is that they are intertwined with each other. And when you study them like that, it increases your ability to understand them very well, and most importantly, put you in the position to go into the exam and pass the examination. On subsequent measurement, IAS 16 states that the entity can apply either the revaluation model or fair value, or carry it at the cost model. Okay. But on subsequent measurement, there are some accounting standards that could also come to town. The first one is certainly IAS 36, impairment of assets, because we have to, on subsequent measurement, we have to test for impairment. Why? Because the standard says that an asset cannot be carried above its recoverable amount. And the recoverable amount of an asset shall be the higher of value in use, and then the fair value less cost to sell, or the net realizable value. So IAS 36, it's going to be coming to town here. And remember, it is not just in respect of the impairment of specific property, plant, and equipment. We also have impairment of cash generating unit, which is a whole business suffering an impairment. But we're going to be coming back to that impairment. Not only that, there could be transfers on subsequent measurement. What do we mean? A property, plant, and equipment could be reclassified. The management will decide to sell the property, and the property may be available for sale, and they are looking or located a buyer, and they expect that the sale should be completed in less than 12 months. Okay. In that case, that means we have to derecognize it from PPE to a non-current asset held for sale and discontinued operation, which is IFRS 5, non-current asset held for sale and discontinued operation. Not only that, when we revalue the assets, what's going to be happening is that there may be tax implication on subsequent measurements, because remember, IAS 12 states that an entity must recognize the future tax consequences on all transactions, and PPE or property, plant and equipment is not an exception to that rule. For that reason, IAS 12 is going to be coming to town here, and we must understand it. Because yes, there is IAS 12 standing on its own, we must know it, but also when we revalue assets and there's a revaluation surplus or whatever, the tax implication of that must be accounted for as well in the books, and that is where IAS 12 income tax is going to be coming to town. And so on the subsequent measurement, not only are we dealing with IAS 36, IFRS 5, we're also dealing with IAS 12. Heck, we can also bring in IAS 40, investment property. Why? Because again, the transfer issues that I mentioned can happen here. Because we can transfer an investment property into a PPE or a PPE into an investment property. Hey, an investment property could even be transferred into inventory to be sold in the ordinary course of business of the entity. So you realize that. Now, there are other things I could add, okay? I'm just being a bit conservative here when in the discussion. But you realize that connected with IAS 16 alone are what? 8 other accounting standards. Again, I'm just being conservative here. There are about 3 or 4 more of them that we could bring here because of the connection or the relationship. But that is the idea here. So you are dealing with IAS 16, but it is connected with 8 other accounting standards. So when you learn it like that, when you see it like that, it makes the standards easier, because you know, oh, this thing that I'm learning, I will apply it in this standard. So when you do it like that, it makes your brain understand that, hey, you can't forget this thing because you're going to apply it in this, because you're going to see it in another standard. So when you see it in another standard, then it becomes a revision, then you apply it to that standard. I hope you are getting the idea. It becomes a revision, then you apply it to the standard. So that's IAS 16 and the various standards that we need to understand there. Now, in addition to these standards here, connecting with IAS 16, are 3 other standards that, I talk about all the time. IFRS, financial instruments, leases, and then IFRS 15, revenue from contract with customers. These 3 accounting standards, we must know about them. Leases, revenue from contract with customers, and then financial instrument. Now, when it comes to financial instrument, there are 3 accounting standards for financial instruments. 3. So we have the IFRS 9, financial instrument recognition and measurement. Then we have IAS 32, financial instrument presentation. We use that to deal with compound or convertible loan notes. So when an entity issues convertible loan notes, then the convertible loan note must be split into the debt component and the equity component in accordance with IAS 32. That is financial instrument presentation. Then you come to IFRS 7, and that is financial instrument disclosure. So when it comes to financial instruments, 3 different accounting standards there. Then we come to leases, IFRS 7. Then we come to IFRS 15, revenue from contract with customers. Now, these 3 are together, and you must know them together like that. Why? Because either the examiner will bring them independently. So we could have question on IFRS 15, revenue from contract with customers, or it could form part of the notes to the preparation of the financial statement, the single entity financial statement. Because an entity could sell something, but performance obligation hadn't been satisfied yet, but it had included the amount in their revenue. If performance obligation hadn't been satisfied, how are you including it in the revenue? Which means they are breaching IFRS 15. So you must come in and reverse the transaction and account for it in a manner that it has to be accounted for. Or the entity makes sales, and they have an option to buy back the goods at some time in the future. So if we sold some goods with an option to repurchase at a time in the future, that means the transaction is not a sale, but it's a financial arrangement. So that transaction should not be accounted for in accordance with IFRS 15, revenue from contract with customers, but should be accounted for in accordance with IFRS 9, financial instruments recognition and measurement, because it means we went for a loan and we had used the goods as a collateral facility. So if the entity had included the proceeds in revenue, what do we have to do? We must take it out and rather recognize a loan note, because it's a loan that has been taken from the supposed customer that we sold the goods to. Now, although the goods are with the customer, what it means also is that we would have to recognize the goods as part of the closing stock at the reporting date. Because remember, we hadn't sold the goods. We are using the goods as a collateral facility. So it is still ours and must be included in the closing stock at the reporting date. And that is the beauty of the accounting standards again. So when you are learning IFRS 15 and you are learning IFRS 9, it's not like they are two distinct standards. No, they have connection. Then you come to leases, IFRS 16. There is a part in leases where we talk about a sale and leaseback transactions. In a sale and leaseback transaction, the way you treat sale and leaseback depends on whether performance obligation has been satisfied or not in accordance with IFRS 15. Because if performance obligation has been satisfied, then the transaction is a sale. But if performance obligation had not been satisfied, then the transaction is not a sale, but again, a financial arrangement. So, although you are hearing sale and leaseback, it will rather be accounted for in accordance with IFRS 9, financial liability. And that's the beauty of the standards. So, these three standards also have a lot in common. So, when you learn it like this, or you see the accounting standards like this, it becomes beautiful. So you know that, it is not like, you are learning a tall list of things. No, they are connected. They are related. You are going to be applying one principle in another standard. You are going to apply this principle in another standard. And when you study it that way, it put you in the position to go into the exam hall and write the exam with much confidence. Why? Because you understand exactly what you are doing. So you look at IAS 16. 8 accounting standards coming up, making 9 accounting standards just under IAS 16. Then these 3 accounting standards, or maybe 5, financial instrument alone is 3, the connection there. Then the other accounting standards like IAS 2 inventories, IAS 41 agriculture, IAS 8 accounting policies, changes in accounting estimate and errors, IAS 10 events after the reporting period, IAS 33 earnings per share, IAS 24 related party disclosures. These are the accounting standards. And this is pivotal when it comes to passing the financial reporting examination.